Trustee Floyd Griffin, will you please join me on the platform for the conferring of the honorary doctorate as a representative of the Board of Trustees. He's the Secretary of the Board of Trustees, Provost Caesar Furman, and obviously President Harvey, will you please join us to my right. A president has many opportunities during his tenure to confer honorary doctorates to distinguished individuals who come to our campus. And in many ways, this is one of the most important honorary doctorates that I have ever been able to recommend to the Board of Trustees. The Harvey Citation for an Honorary Degree. A visionary leader, innovator, businessman are just a few of the words that encapsulate who you are. A distinguished academician from Brewton, Alabama, who went on to Talladega College, then to serve in the United States Army, and on to the Hallett Halls of Harvard University, where you earned your doctorate in college administration. Dr. William R. Harvey is one of the nation's premier leaders of higher education. Dr. Harvey, your record of accomplishments in your 39 years and counting at Hampton University is outstanding. You have increased enrollment from 2,700 students to over 6,300 students, added 76 new academic programs, and grown Hampton's endowment from $29 million to a current day value of over $250 million. Your promotion of a learning environment that encourages faculty research rivals that of any major research university and has positioned Hampton University as a leader in research and technology, not only in the Hampton Roads area and Virginia, but nationwide. Alzheimer's research, weather satellites being launched to study notolucent clouds and their relationship to global warming, and your building of the first proton therapy cancer treatment center in the Commonwealth of Virginia are just a few of the examples of how Hampton University has been placed and kept in the cutting edge of higher education. Your success as one of the foremost leaders in all of higher education, not just in the world of HBCUs, is a model for all college and university presidents, both sitting and those waiting in the wings to lead. Your humility and commitment to fairness are a testament to both your character and your integrity, and is evidence in your statement. Quote, "In all that we do, in every decision that we undertake, we should always keep fairness at the center of our being. To me, it doesn't make a lot of difference if decisions are not popular. It is important, however, for decisions to be fair." Your leadership has not only impacted higher education, but the community also. Your service as the first African-American head of the Virginia Peninsula United Way campaign led to a record-setting $6.6 million. You have also implemented programs to help stop juvenile delinquency, truancy, and illiteracy. You, alongside of Mrs. Harvey, have also honored the legacy of your father with a $1 million endowment scholarship for aspiring teachers. Therefore, in recognition of your contributions to the community of higher education and as one of the nation's longest-serving university presidents, and on the authority granted to me by the Tuskegee University Board of Trustees, we take great pleasure and honor in awarding you the honorary doctorate, Doctorate of Laws from Tuskegee University, with all the rights and privileges appertaining thereto. President Harvey doesn't need an extended introduction, but I will tell you that one of the reasons why we wanted to select on this 100th annual convocation President Harvey is not only because of the unique relationship which we all are aware of, that our very own founding principal and president, Booker T. Washington, was a graduate of Hampton, but beyond that, General Samuel Armstrong, who, when he sent forth his very best and brightest was a teacher who had graduated from Hampton, Booker T. Washington, and when Lewis Adams and the Board of Trustees and members here at Tuskegee said, "Send us our very best," they sent the Hampton graduate who came and led this great institution for 34 years. And at this time, not only is President Harvey a distinguished representative of Hampton, but he also, in many ways, is a part of the Tuskegee University family, having spent 6 years here in the local community and here at the university. So his accolades, his biography is well known to most of you, but I ask that each and every one of you stand to your feet and welcome President William Harvey to the platform.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want you to know that I am as pleased as I know how to be here today. And I want to thank you to the President, to the Board of Trustees for the honorary doctorate. I will say to you that I have been blessed in my life in so many ways, including the fact that the President introduced my wife, Mrs. Harvey, and she has been in my life for 50 years. I want to tell you what I say about her. She's the straw that stirs my drink. To Dr. Johnson, to the members of the Board of Trustees, to the alumni that's present, elected officials, faculty, staff, students, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It is such a pleasure for me to be here with you today on the occasion of the Tuskegee University's 2017 Founders Day celebration. I bring you warm greetings from the Hampton University family. And before I go on, President Johnson, let me thank you again. I want to thank you. I want to thank your Chief of Police, your Chief of Staff Brown, the Executive Assistant to the President, to the chef in the Kellogg Center for that fine meal last night. But most of all, Mr. President, I want to thank you for your outstanding hospitality. Dr. Johnson, clearly your leadership is fostering a culture of kindness. So again, I thank you, sir. As Dr. Johnson said, and as many out in the audience may know, we spent 6 wonderful years here at Tuskegee University as one of the vice presidents before moving on to my current position of president of Hampton some 39 years ago, personally and professionally. Those years here at Tuskegee were absolutely wonderful. My wife and 2 children and I lived in campus housing. When we left, we were living at 302 Franklin Road. Our daughter, Kelly, went to Russell Nursery School and then on to St. Joseph's Catholic School for the 1st grade. Our son, Chris, went to the Russell Nursery School. Our daughter, Leslie, was not born until we got to Hampton. I want to tell you a quick story, if I might. When we left Fisk to come here, my wife was pregnant. So we had a daughter that was born at Fisk. We came here and we had a son that was born at Tuskegee. Then we went to Hampton, and we had a daughter that was born at Hampton. My wife said, "We ain't moving no more." And I want you to know that when you start calling names, it's probably not the right thing to do, and I probably do a whole lot of things that's not right. So I want you to know I shall never forget outstanding people when we were here at Tuskegee. People like my boss, Dr. Luther Foster, whom I'm going to talk a little bit about later. Mrs. Dorothy Woodson, Colonel Herbert Carter, Major Upshaw Sams, neighbor John Parker, neighbor and fellow Vice President Harold Logan, my longtime, yeah, you can applaud for Harold, my longtime mentors, Mr. and Mrs. K.B. Young, May, Laylie Washington, Pauline Punch, and across the street neighbor, Mrs. Cooper, whom our children called Aunt Fox. There are a host of others, too numerous to name, but I would have been remiss if I had not called out their names. And I want to say something to you, ladies and gentlemen. I'll plug my book for a minute. I just came out with another book, and it's dealing with the principles of leadership. And one of the 10 principles that I have is teamwork. I could not have done anything here at Tuskegee or at Hampton without those loyal team members. I say that collective competence is better than individual competence any day. And I mean that. And I mean that. We do well at Hampton because of the team. I've had 17 of my vice presidents go out to become presidents of other colleges and universities. Great people. We would not have had the success if it were not for them, and we would not continue the success if it were not for the people that are there now. Let me state again, those were wonderful, wonderful years. And I want you to know, I'm glad to be Hope. Now, as it relates to Hampton and Tuskegee, anyone who has ever been at these two fine institutions immediately notice the close relationship between the two. Actually, Hampton and Tuskegee have been inextricably bound together since Booker T. Washington left Hampton, as Dr. Johnson indicated, and arrived here at Tuskegee on June 24th, 1881. Hampton is obviously proud of Dr. Washington, who is clearly one of our most illustrious graduates. We're also pleased with the excellent relationship existing between these two great institutions. These institutions that symbolize excellence in teaching, learning, and research. From the very beginning of Tuskegee, these two institutions have been intertwined in an extremely positive fashion. In addition to your founder, other major figures have traveled on the road between Hampton and Tuskegee. Among them are former President Moden, who came from Hampton to Tuskegee, former President Luther Foster, who graduated from Tuskegee, former President Patterson, who served Hampton as a trustee and who became trustee emeritus at both schools. And I can add to that bond my own travels from Tuskegee to Hampton, where, as I stated earlier, I have had the real pleasure to serve for 39 years. Having been at Tuskegee for the 6 years, as I also mentioned, I also feel qualified to talk a little bit about the uniqueness of Tuskegee. This can be done by a Hampton president because both schools are unique in their own right, and the stature of one is not diminished by the critique and positive contributions of the other. Clearly, Tuskegee University is in the forefront of the American educational enterprise. Therefore, what I propose to do for you today is a personal refresher course. It is beneficial to present-day Tuskegeans to understand the uniqueness of Tuskegee University's history and progress, and to keep this clear as you go about your daily work. Tuskegee is a multi-impact institution of tremendous breadth. Tuskegee has solid, undeniable academic strengths, seen in its programs, its faculty, and its students. It is fully accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. I know a little bit about that as well, because when I was here, President Foster had tasked me to lead the reaffirmation of the accreditation with the Southern Association. Additionally, I also know that Tuskegee has received professional accreditation for many of its programs, including architecture, chemistry, engineering, nursing, and others. On this refresher journey, ladies and gentlemen, let's go back to your very beginning. It was a local man's initiative that brought about the Tuskegee Institute. That historic history maker was a black tinsmith named Lewis Adams, and I see that he's got one of his relatives that's here today. As a slave artisan in Tuskegee, he had learned tinsmithing, shoemaking, and harness making. Later, during the years of freedom, he built a substantial business in tin. He made kitchen utensils for the housewives of Tuskegee, roofed the business buildings, and moved into hardware and leather working. In 1881, he was probably the leading black citizen of the town, and as owner of a substantial store on the court square, Adams had a great deal of influence. He never attended school a day in his life, but somehow had learned to read and write, perhaps through his master's indulgence during slavery. He strongly believed that education should impart not only book learning, but practical skills by which black folk should improve their opportunities. He was a shrewd, cool bargainer who could talk with the whites of the community either without fear or bombast. In the election of 1880, Colonel Wilbur Foster, a wounded Confederate veteran and lawyer, was a Democratic candidate for the state Senate. He and his colleague, Arthur Brooks, candidate for a seat in the lower house, came to Adams and asked his price for swaying the black vote of the town to his side. Typically, Lewis Adams said he wanted nothing for himself, but would deliver the black vote in return for some substantial gain for the black community. For the black community. He secured the politicians' promise to sponsor and secure passage of a bill for a normal school at Tuskegee. Adams delivered his part of the bargain, and so did Arthur Brooks. He introduced House Bill 165 to appropriate state funds for a black state normal school at Tuskegee. The bill to establish a normal school passed the House by a vote of 48 to 20 and 21 to 7 in the Senate, and was signed by Governor Cobb on February the 10th, 1881, with the annual big appropriation of $2,000. The projected school was placed under the board of 3 commissioners, and Lewis Adams was one. The commissioners, in the form of Lewis Adams, then wrote General Samuel Chapman Armstrong at Hampton, requesting that they send them somebody. General Armstrong recommended Booker T. Washington, who arrived at Tuskegee on June 24th, 1881. When Washington reached Tuskegee, his first impression of the town was a favorable one. "Dear friends," he wrote on a postcard to the treasurer of Hampton, "the place has a healthy and pleasant location, high and hilly. Think I shall like it," he said. "We'll open school the first Monday in July." Now, it is not certain, ladies and gentlemen, that Booker T. Washington made as good a first impression on the town and the commissioners as they had on him. George Washington Campbell, who became commissioner with the death of Thomas Dyer, said he looked like he was about 18 years old and looked so young we did not know whether or not we would take him or not, but we thought with the recommendation he would do. Now, Dr. Washington's manly bearing and no-nonsense demeanor soon erased any doubt that they had of him. Then on June 29th, just 5 days after arriving at Tuskegee, Washington wrote General Armstrong at Hampton and said, "You have probably heard of my safe arrival here. I found things as represented, General. I want your advice, however, at once on this point. I have walked all around town and examined the land. Finally, I have found a farm about a half a mile from town, which I think will suit above all others. Myself and the trustees have just seen the owner of the farm, and he said that it contained 100 acres, and he would sell these 100 acres to us for $500. $200 when he gives possession, and the remainder to run at 8% till paid. In case we get it, we expect to have it deeded to the university so that the state will have no control over the land. Then, in case the state withdraws its appropriation at any time, the school could still live." Look at the wisdom of this young 25-year-old individual as he began to build his school. He understood that when people have financial sway over you, they may be able to dictate the terms. And he didn't want that at the age of 25. Look at that wisdom. General Armstrong agreed. General Armstrong agreed and advised the Treasury of his decision. Then on July 5th, 1881, Mr. Washington wrote, "My dear friend, your telegram was received this a.m., worded as follows. I advise the purchase of your representation of the farm. I thank you for the advice that we may move our school on the farm at once. However, I want to ask the loan of $200 from the school so that we might purchase the land. And I will pledge my salary for its payment at that time." General Armstrong approved the loan of $200 from Hampton, and the money was sent to Mr. Washington to purchase the initial 100 acres upon which the university initially stood. Mr. Washington repaid the $200 as he did all of his debts. And Washington opened the school on July 4th, 1881, in the African Methodist Episcopal Church and an adjoining shanty with 30 students. The original 100 acres owned by the Institute has now expanded exponentially. My wife and I rode around campus yesterday, and we were so pleased to see the growth and the development. And that was the original 100 acres. The small budget has increased into the millions, and there's 30 students have multiplied into the thousands. The Institute has evolved into a university that promotes learning and service. It encompasses a varied educational program. It has entered the realm of international education and taken the lead in paving new avenues for African Americans. Fully accredited, coeducational, non-sectarian, this professional and technical institution has geared its entire curricular program to provide students with maximum overall competence. Tuskegee University boasts 8 schools and colleges and offers nearly 50 undergraduate degrees and 19 graduate degrees. Clearly, Tuskegee is unique. It is, for an example, the only black institution, not wholly state-supported, that offers a strong, comprehensive program in agriculture and an accredited program in engineering. The only black college, public or private, offering veterinary medicine. Tuskegee is unique because the work-study program that began on this campus has now been copied by other institutions and is a federal thrust in helping the disadvantaged when they matriculate. Cooperative education, which is so popular among colleges and universities today, can be traced to include the methods of teaching in Tuskegee's early on-the-job training program. Special educational services for the disadvantaged, now receiving federal support, were inaugurated in the 1940s, students, at Tuskegee through remedial programs in math and English. Tuskegee is unique because it began extension work among farm families before the organization of an official government extension program. Agricultural workers were sent to Europe. They were sent to Africa decades before the establishment of federal technical assistance programs. Tuskegee is unique because of the way it spearheaded career opportunities for blacks in the Air Force and conducted flight training for black Air Force cadets during World War II. Now, although they are closed now, the uniqueness of Tuskegee can be found in the John Andrew Hospital, where our son Chris was born, and HRDC under Dr. Pinnock, an organized center for the development of human resources designed chiefly to serve the adult population of the state in which it is located. Tuskegee is unique and fortunate because it has had outstanding leadership from Dr. Washington to your current president, Dr. Brian Johnson. Now, let me say to you that the items that I have previously mentioned were made possible because of the strong leadership of these presidents and the help from their colleagues, such as those of you that I'm looking at right now. Faculty, staff, students, alumni, and friends who down through the years have provided unvarnished support for this great university. I must take a point of personal privilege at this point to single out my boss when I was here, President Luther H. Foster. I remember him as presenting the most perfect type of mental, fiscal, and professional man that I've ever had the privilege to see in my entire life. His managerial style would have allowed him to provide efficient and effective leadership at any college in the university, in the United States, black or white, large or small, north or south, east or west. During my 6 years as one of the vice presidents and afterwards, In all of my work away from Tuskegee, the many boards that I've served on, the schools that I have gone to, I want you to know that it was my privilege to be guided, to be instructed, to be inspired by him and his words. And I have never, including this very moment, had an occasion to change the first impression that Luther Hilton Foster had on me. And those of you that are alumni certainly can be of immeasurable help to Tuskegee. The undergirding factor to good professors, quality programs, scholarships for students, modest campus renovations, and in general, good financial help which allows the president and the board and the faculty to maneuver. I will say to you, alumni, President Johnson needs your help. I'll tell you what I say to the Hampton people. Don't tell me in your instance you love Tuskegee and you don't give to Tuskegee. Yeah. We need help. We need help. And the prime source of this is voluntary giving. The keynote of all voluntary support is an involved, dedicated alumni group. In my 39 years, most corporations and foundations readily ask, what are your alumni doing? Are they supporting you? The feeling, and I will say rightfully so, is that if the people who benefit most do not support, then they say, why should we? If the people that matriculated, got degrees, gone on, got jobs, don't support, why should we? On the other side of the coin, the idea is if the people who benefit most do support, then the entity, the foundation, the corporation, the individual most likely will then support it as well. The crucial margin then, the difference between mediocrity and excellence, must spring from renewed alumni support. I tell you the same thing that I tell the alumni of Hampton. Now and in the years ahead, much more needs to be done if Tuskegee is to maintain the stature and dynamism that it has always enjoyed. We are under assault from so many different areas, and I'm not going to get into all of the political and other kinds of things at this moment. But we are under assault. And as I said, never before does your alma mater need more loyal alumni who support their institution and respect its vigorous role in a dynamic world. By being a part of the Tuskegee institutional family, you're a part of the unique living history. Your challenge then is a great one. You have to do the very best that you can to help Tuskegee maintain and sustain itself. For just as Hampton University, Tuskegee is many things. It is service. It is a tremendous resource to the state and nation. It is programs. But most of all, it is people. You can make a difference. And as you celebrate your founder and Hampton alumnus, Dr. Booker T. Washington, today and in years to come, remember that he was a man of great vision. You know, and you need to understand your role in making sure that this moves forward with vigor, His vision laid the foundation for the Tuskegee that we know and love today. Yours is a glorious history. Whatever your association with this outstanding institution, you are obligated to do your absolute best to keep your founder's vision alive and clearly understand that this is the pride of the swift-growing South, and ensure that not only Tuskegee survives, but that Tuskegee thrives. Now, as I'll say to you, as I say to my Hampton family, we have a lot to do, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get on with it.
Dr. Harvey, I think only a president of your stature can just walk away from the microphone and just say, let's get on with it and sit down. I think the young folks would say that's dropping the mic. But we appreciate those wonderful words. Once again, President Harvey, we welcome you and thank you